Welcome to Essential Ingredients. I'm Justine Reichman, your host. Today we have here E, and I am just so thrilled to have you. We also have Yvette, and she was the one that brought E to this conversation. They met a couple weeks ago on a virtual conference, and I'm so pleased to be able to have you here today and let you introduce yourself because, again, as I said to you earlier, that I just will not be able to do you justice. And I'd love for you to just introduce yourself to our listeners today.
Thank you for having me, Justine. My name is Jian Yi. You can call me Yi. My background is filmmaking. I'm also the founder and president of the Good Food Fund under China Biodiversity and Green Development Foundation.
Wow. So I'm super excited. I mean, just from the minute Yvette mentioned that she had spoken to you and she was talking about the Good Food Fund and that you launched this, and everything about it, from promoting a sustainable food system and getting the Chinese government involved and being able to create a system that would not only talk about this but make it accessible, is something that I think people don't think is possible and people don't talk enough about. So I'd love to just hear from you a little bit about what inspired you. How'd you come up with it? Why was it so important to you?
Yeah, the next generation, the next generation chefs, the next generation of people. I was first became aware of the issue when I was making a documentary on the environmental impact of the meat industry. And I was, alerted to this fact that, how our diet is affecting our environment and affecting the chances for future generation. So that was my entry point, and that's what actually keeps me here in this space.
So before we get too far into the Good Food Fund, for those listeners that are chiming in and listening to the podcast that aren't familiar with it, can you tell us a little bit more about the Good Food Fund, a little bit about its fundamentals and what your goal is for it?
Yeah, here at the Good Food Fund, our mission is to promote good food, to enhance public health, animal health, and the health of the planet. So we've been working very hard on food system transformation in China. It is a very, very new topic, and we're also a very new organization. We've only been around for almost 4 years. So we've been mostly doing two things. One thing is to identify and foster leadership among different stakeholders, including chefs and people who cook at home, community leaders and policymakers and academia and people in the industry. And second, we've been providing what we call public goods to the community, to the space, including an annual Good Food Summit, an annual Good Food Festival for chefs, and an annual Food Forward Forum for food services.
That's a lot. You do these are annual summit or annual larger events
right.
that you do, right?
Right. Once a year, yeah.
So can you go back? So I know you mentioned 3, right? You mentioned 3. Is that correct? Can you go back to the first one? Remind me, what was the first one called again?
This Good Food Summit, the Good Food Festival.
Tell us a little bit about
and then Food Forward Forum.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Good Food Summit first?
Right. Well, back in 2017, we were very involved with the vegetarian movement in China, which I call is the second wave of vegetarian movement in China. The first one being in 1910s, so exactly 100 years ago. And then the second wave happened in 2010s. But we realized back then in 2017 that people were not connected. The dots were not connected. People who worked, to advanced vegetarianism in China, they were very keen on pushing forward to a vegetarian agenda. And people who are working for ecological agriculture, they were very keen on reforming the way we produce our foods. And the policymakers as well, there's no integrated governance on food issues. So we realized that we need to connect the dots.
Mhm.
So for the first summit, first edition of the summit, we put together vegetarian activists and activists who work in the ecological agriculture, and try to create a conversation during the 3 days of the summit. And that was quite a success. And so we kept doing that. We kept doing that for 4 years now.
Wow, that's it. Can you share some of the impacts, some of the impact that you've had by doing that? So maybe before you had this summit and before the conversation,
Mm-hmm.
what were people thinking when these conversations were separate? And then when you brought them together,
Right.
what was the impact that you had? What were the realizations that people were coming to?
Yeah, I can give you an example. Like 30 years ago, when people in China started to talk about environmental protection, more often than not, they were kind of confusing environmental protection with sanitation. Like how to keep the city clean, don't litter and all this, which is very important, but
Mhm.
that's not the whole picture, right? So after we've been, our economy has been developing, our environment has been deteriorating, and our understanding of environmental protection has been deepening, we realize that environmental protection or environmental sustainability is actually a systemic I use my English, systemic issue. Um, Same thing with food. Still, even until today, people's most the general understanding of food related issue is very narrow on food safety, which
Mhm.
is also very important.
Mhm.
But food safety is not an issue alone, and it's not definitely not the only issue. So what we have done with our summit is that we make a case for systemic change of our food system, which is we think is very important and which is connected to all the issues that we are talking about, including food safety and and healthy food and sustainable food. So I think we have done a relatively good job in that. And also the second relative success, when I say relative, I mean, this is still a cause that needs a lot of time to advance, is that we connect the people, we connect people who are working in different areas. And yeah, and so we can look at these issues together and work together.
I think it's super important. And spearheading this, I'm sure, is going to go a long way for you. Every year that you grow, you're going to have new findings. Do you think that, you'll extend beyond China?
We did get requests from other parts of the world and saying they're very interested in learning from what we have been doing in China, and they would like to start something similar in their own country, something like a good food programs. Uh, right now, we don't have a lot of capacity
Mhm.
to really expand to other countries, but we would love to help people who would like to do similar things, make similar efforts. And also, we think what we are doing here in China is very important for the rest of the world because China is the largest consumer and producer of food. And also China consumes 1/3 of the world's meat. So what we do here in China has a significant impact on the rest of the world as well.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, so many of the things that are happening today, so many of the initiatives when we are talking to people around what is it, cultivated meats even, and the impact it's going to have. They look at China when they talk about plant
Right.
forward things, when they talk about, the impossible burgers, and as they change, all that whole, cultivated meat industry, they look at China as the impact it's going to have is tremendous because of the size of the market.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to detract, but because you were talking that there were 3 initiatives that you have, and we spoke about one, I'd love to just hear a little bit more. If you could tell us a little bit more detail about the other two, if you would.
Sure. And then we have the Good Food Festival. The Good Food Festival targets at chefs because we think cultivating leadership among the chefs for healthier and more sustainable food is extremely important, because everybody knows chefs, they are the experts. They are the experts, and then they have the potentials to be the leaders, not just leaders of how we can make tasty food, but leaders of lifestyle, because food is so central in our lifestyle. So, uh, so every year, right before the Chinese New Year, because that is like the most important festival for the Chinese population. We normally hold the festival 2 weeks before the Chinese New Year, before everybody got so busy and traveling. Um, yeah, so we have kind of a national competition for chefs, and they have to follow certain guidelines. We actually use our Good Food Pledge as the guideline. The Good Food Pledge, and I can explain a little bit,
Yes,
is
please.
our effort. Yeah, is our effort to create something similar to the UN SDGs, the UN United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So we would like the Good Food Pledge to be like the UN SDGs in the sustainable food space. It contains 8 principles, including plant forward, animal welfare, healthy cooking, supporting local agriculture, reducing food waste, recycling, biodiversity, and food education. So basically, if you follow these 8 principles, you are largely supporting a more sustainable consumption pattern. So we use that as the guideline and guiding principles, and the chefs have to cook meals and in that way, and then we select the finalist to come to Beijing, and we have a final competition, and then we select the winners, and the winners then will then champion the the food that they create and their fellow contestants create. And then these recipes will be shared nationwide for the Chinese New Year, because the Chinese New Year is so important and people will eat so much during the festival. We want them to eat more healthily and more sustainably, more responsibly as well.
I love that. It's experiential as well, right? So you're creating this whole experience. You're walking them through the process. It's very mindful. And then at the end of the day, you're supporting them to create that experience. And then you're giving the end consumer an opportunity to also experience it.
Right,
And I don't
right.
know how much of the messaging do they know that? Do the consumers know that that's the experience they're getting? Do they understand that?
Yeah, yeah, we will help them contextualize why we are doing this and why this is good for themselves as well. It's not just good for the larger good,
Right.
but it's also good for their own health and the health of their family. And we made it very interesting as well. Like this year in January, we were so lucky. We were so lucky. We just a couple of weeks before the outbreak of COVID,
Right.
we were able to do this. We didn't know that was something like this was already going on in the city of Wuhan. We were in Beijing, so yeah. So we had this the latest one in January, and we had 20 finalists coming from all over the country, and we put them in a local village in Beijing with 20 different families. So
Mhm.
they were basically conducting their final competition in a village family, and the chefs didn't know what we had for them
Mhm.
until they walked into the kitchen of that family, and they saw on the table those were the things they have to cook with. So it was fun, and it was very creative because they have to do something in within 90 minutes
Wow, I
to
love that.
create
That's
something that
exciting.
impress us.
That's really
Yeah,
exciting. So maybe, I mean, I know that other countries are asking for your support and guidance in doing this. Are there any tips that you would give them or ideas that you might recommend if they wanted to be able to start to create a program like this to support a more sustainable food system for their country?
sure. Well, I would suggest that to be as inclusive as possible. try to reach out to the biggest possible community out there for chefs, and also try to utilize internet, uh, social media. So like for the last one, we work with Going to Kitchen, which
Mhm.
is the largest recipe sharing app in China. They have a few million, more than that, I think 10 million, more than 10 million subscribers. And they were so, so generous for us to use their resources for free. They promoted our events on Going to Kitchen app, and hosted all the recipes. So
Yeah.
that was tremendously helpful.
Well, I know that you were talking about COVID and how, you did a lot of this just pre-COVID. As,
Hmm.
obviously COVID has had a tremendous impact for a lot of businesses. I'm curious to hear how COVID has impacted your ability to have this impact. What did your process look like pre-COVID, during COVID, and how are you planning for post-COVID?
Yeah. Well, I personally was affected because I went right after our Good Food Festival in January. My family and I went to Nepal for vacation, and then all this happened. And so we were not able to come back until end of July. So
Wow,
we were stuck in Nepal for more than 6 months. But
that's
not a
not
bad thing.
significant at
Not a
all.
bad thing. Yeah, Nepal was a good place to be stuck in. We were able to spend really some fun time on a local eco farm,
Mhm.
organic farm. That was really fun. So
Just
yeah,
out of
so
curiosity, so what took you to Nepal? Was it family? Was it friends? Was it
it was
vacation?
just vacation.
A,
Yeah, just random vacation. We
a
just say,
random
okay, let's go
vacation?
to Nepal. Yeah, before the Chinese New Year, and we come back during the Chinese New Year. And then that happened. We were not able to come back in February as we had planned. Um, but it was fun. It was relatively affordable. If I was stuck in New York City or in in Mumbai,
Right.
somewhere, yeah, yeah, that would be so yeah. And we love Nepal, and we love the local culture, and we were able also to learn a little bit more about the more traditional agriculture in South Asia. That was a really something we appreciate the experience. And so that's a personal level. My family and I basically missed the the COVID-19, because when that was happening here in China, we were in Nepal, and we were, when this started to escalate in Nepal, we actually we already were back here in China. Uh, so that was a lucky part. Um, yeah, but so the whole year has been so disruptive. We were not able to travel for our work, but luckily we were able to do most of our work online, and we were also able to start some new initiatives like the Mama's Kitchen, as
Right.
well as the wet market reform. Because after the outbreak of COVID-19, I got a lot of requests from international media asking me for my comments on wet markets because of this association with COVID. Um, and so basically, the idea was that people in the West were demanding China to close the wet markets.
Mhm.
And my response is, number one, no, we don't have a term in the Chinese language like the wet market. We don't have that term in the Chinese language. We have 10 different words for this kind of markets. So you can't say that, all the markets are the same. All the markets are wet markets, because the market in Wuhan, where, was the first case of COVID-19 was identified, is actually a seafood market. So it's basically an animal market. But most markets are not like that. Most markets are where people can access fresh produce. It's very similar to your farmers market.
Mhm.
So we can't imagine, as Chinese, we can't imagine to close down all these markets just because they are called wet market in English. Um, Second, uh, we we think there is room. So we don't think we need to close down these markets, but we do think there's room for Reimagine the role of these markets and reimagine how these markets can be a better place for food and for to prioritize health and sustainability. We actually reimagine these markets to be the good food urban hub that connects producers and consumers. So that's what we've been doing. We actually just edited a handbook, what we call the Good Food Handbook for Revolutionizing Wet Markets. And we actually redefined the English word wet as WET, capitalized wet. W stands for well-being, E stands for ecology, T stands for transformation, which really captures what we hope these markets to be.
Wait, is it W-E-T, wet, like all caps?
Yes, all
Okay.
capitalized, yeah.
All capitalized, which was confusing for me in the beginning because that also is the Workforce Education and Training Committee.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So,
we were just, reinterpreting.
no,
Yeah.
of course, but I'm just thinking, wait, that's the Workforce.
Yeah.
I was on that committee.
Oh, really? Okay. I didn't know there was such a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just so you know, so you don't, so you can keep it in context when you're talking about it, so people don't get confused. I'm sure they won't, but I did for a second.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks
So
for telling me.
it sounds like you guys made you have a lot going on, and given everything with COVID, you were able to make the right pivots and create new opportunities. What happened to those 3 large initiatives that you were working on that really do seem like they're very much in-person, community-driven events? Did you put them on pause? Did you put them online?
Yeah.
What do they look like today?
Yeah, that's good news and bad news. The bad news is that we cannot, convene offline as we normally do because we really appreciate the, the context of people really on site. But the good news is that we were able to hold our 4th edition of the Good Food Summit in late October this year. And we still had quite a successful event. We had more than 50 speakers from around the world. We had, guess what? We had much more audience this year because of the internet.
Right.
We had a live stream. So we had more than 300,000 people watching.
Wow, that's 300,000 people.
Yeah, 300,000 people watching. We didn't expect that, and so next year
what did you expect? Because I would never have expected 300,000. That's huge.
Yeah, for the last 3 editions, we usually had 300, a little over 300 people on site for our offline events. So that was what we were expecting.
Okay, so what did you expect online? What was your guess? In your wildest dreams, what did you expect?
A few thousand.
A few thousand.
A few thousand, yeah.
Wow, a few 100,000. Were you prepared for it? Were you ready when they got there? Like, were all systems working? Like,
yeah. Because it was a live stream, so it was not a Zoom call. Otherwise, Zoom call, we cannot manage that. We couldn't have just overwhelming. It was live stream, so they could still ask questions. They could still type in their questions. But it's not like that we have to manage, like people getting in the chat room, things like that. That wouldn't have been possible. Yeah. So, but next year, if circumstances permit, we'll still have an offline event, but we will definitely add a live stream to that.
Wow, well, that's amazing. Well done. So
for the festival thing, we don't know what we're gonna do this year because we can't have a big gathering. Although if you look at me and I'm here in this city and it's like any other year. Nobody's wearing mask and it's like kind of normal here. Yeah. No, it's like the markets are open. It's like any other year. But this year we are doing something really exciting in lieu of an offline event. We are doing end of the year 24-hour relay on December 31st. So we have 24 time zones around the world. Right. So people will join at 7 p.m. at their own time zone and showcase was on their plate as the last meal of the 2020, because 2020 is such a special year. So we feel like we need a proper farewell dinner to this. So it's called farewell dinner, and Mama's Kitchen, which is our project, Earth Relay.
I love that. How do
yeah, that's fun. Well, you can
our listeners
you can help us. Yeah, of course. You can help us promote, and we do have some core partners. You can be a partner in this.
We'd love to be a partner. We'd love our listeners to know how they can participate. Tell us more.
Oh, definitely. We will encourage as many people to participate as possible, but we will ask them to, there are two ways to participate. One way is they will create a way they can all showcase their plate, and second is that we will feature, because we only have certain capacity to do our live stream. So we have featured about 5 to 6 people for every hour, every time zone per se. And then we are live stream, they can join with Zoom. So those people who are selected as the featured people, they will join by Zoom, and then we'll do live stream with the top Chinese social media. So we're expecting a million, people in the millions to watch this.
Wonderful.
At least in China and around the world. Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to have to tell, we want to be able to share this information with our listeners. So once you have the information, we'll put that in our show notes. Once after this call, after this podcast, you and I will then talk about partnerships. I want to thank today's sponsor, NextGenChef. NextGenChef feeds members with the knowledge and tools that they need to create concepts with purpose and succeed. If you're listening today, they are offering a 1-year subscription for any new founder that wants to participate at a special discounted rate. For more information, email team@nextgenchef.com. If you're interested in becoming a member or just a part of the community, email NextGenChef at team@nextgenchef.com. You can also follow them on Instagram at NextGenChef, as well as on LinkedIn and on Facebook. Thank you again, NextGenChef, for making this podcast possible. Together, we can change the future of food. So in the meantime, I want to, continue talking a little bit more and learn a little bit more from you. I know that you've interacted with numerous key stakeholders all over and across the world as activists, filmmakers, and presidents of the GFF. Do you think there is a need to establish effective international coalition to accelerate global mass adoption of healthy, sustainable, and ethical food? What would it take to make this happen?
The food system is a global system. For example, China, what we consume in China impact the rest of the world. Where does the feed for the factory farms come from? From Brazil, from somewhere else. And vice versa, what is produced and consumed elsewhere affecting China as well. So it has to be a global effort. And when I say global efforts, because I think it's not just international efforts of the states. The government is very important. They have a very important role to play, but it's not just the responsibility and also the capacity of the government to change this. It's the people, it's all of us, the people, industry, media, academia, young people, the youth, the next generation, and mamas, parents, grandparents, as well as policymakers. So it has to be a concerted effort. Otherwise, there's no way you can change this. And there's good news. That's good news. Next year, the UN is going to convene the first ever food system summit, as they call it, and it's a very high level summit. It's promoted. It's actually an initiative promoted by the Secretary General himself. And supported by all the major UN agencies, including WHO, UNEP, FAO, World Food Program, and others. They are all part of this. So it's a very high level summit and involves all the member states. And I'm also personally involved in this. And so I personally think it's, if for organizations like us or for other fellow activists who work in the food space, this is the opportunity, right? So we've been working on this for a few years, and if this is not the opportunity, then when is the time?
Yeah, no, of course. And
This is the first time humanity sit down together and discuss what food we should have on our plate.
I would love to participate in that and talk offline with you after this, not necessarily now,
Sure,
but
sure.
later, and participate and see how I might be able to get involved in that. Having gone to the UN school, as I mentioned, it's always been a dream of mine to be able to connect whatever I did later on in life with my roots, having going back to the UN. So that's on a personal level, I'd really love to be able to connect Essential Ingredients and NextGenChef with this initiative. I also said that Yvette was able to join us. She had been participating on this call, on this podcast through the phone. She was traveling, but she was very excited to be able to put this call together. It was very meaningful for her. And I hope you don't mind, she's joined us. And I wanted to give her an opportunity also to be able to ask some questions. She participates sometimes in these podcasts with me, and our listeners are just getting to know her as well. And she is really interested in sustainability and building a healthy food system. And I enjoy having her perspective. We are both from a different generation, and allows us to reach different generations and ask different questions with different experience and expertise. So with that, I hope you'll chime in with a couple questions and be able to share some of your thoughts with E.
Sure, welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a Chinese citizen living in the US, it is a very exciting time, especially for someone who's interested in the space of animal welfare or alternative proteins, if you may say. I think E has mentioned a little bit, discussed a little bit about the nomenclature of meat. In Chinese, we were talking about wet market, how there is not a perfect translation. I also know that E is currently working on research on the evolution of veganism in China, and how it's important to understand this movement and to translate into modern languages that consumers adopt. They think it's delicious, healthy, and they understand what this product is, what this food is, but they also have like an appetite for it. I know that the Good Food Fund has funded a competition to crowdsource a word for veganism in China. Would you share some of the findings with our viewers to explain the space of veganism in China?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's so many layers of messages in your question. I try my best to answer all of it. First, with alternative protein, we didn't have that word before, because the very word protein is a Western word, right? It's first, it was translated into Chinese. It was based on Western nutrition science. But it's a good way to capture, it's a good way to capture what we want to say, because alternative protein is actually has actually stirred some excitement here in China as well, because a lot of money is going into this, and the market has been is taking more and more market share. So that has been playing a good positive role in terms of raising public awareness of. Then people people start to ask why, why people are creating this, what kind of problem they are trying to solve. So that's a good thing. But the other side of the story is that a lot of people don't think the alternative protein products is necessarily healthy, and it's not necessarily environmentally sustainable either. So, but people do understand that, it takes time. This is such a new thing. It takes time for it to evolve into something that's more sustainable and healthier. So that's the first layer of your question. And the second is that we at the Good Food Fund, we haven't been very actively involved in that space. Our work is mostly focused on promoting what is already in our traditional diet that is plant-based and very healthy and also environmentally sustainable. So we think that kind of a culturally based promotion is very, very important. And yes, at the Good Food Fund, we support the vegetarian movement as well, although we are not a vegetarian or vegan advocacy organization, but we do think people in the vegetarian or vegan community, they have done a lot of important work to help change our food system. So we would like to support that. We have been supporting that as well. And then the last question you asked about, we crowdsourcing Chinese caricatures that can describe what we try to promote. Is that, in Chinese, we don't have a word for vegan. And there's one Chinese caricature called Su, which can mean a lot of different things. So when we are promoting more plant-based food, there's a kind of our language actually lags behind. So we often create more confusion than understanding because of the words. So last year we had an online competition for people to suggest old Chinese characters that can help us describe our, how can I say that, our spectrum of food choices. Because we don't want, when we promote more plant-based food, we don't want it to be black and white. It's either vegan or non-vegan, and that's period. We don't want that. We don't want, and it's not true. It's not a true representation of our food choices, because our food choices is a spectrum, is a rainbow. There are people who eat more plant-based. There are people who eat completely 100% plant-based, but there are people who eat a little bit less. So we want it to be, so we call this effort painting the spectrum or naming the gray area. Even the gray has a lot of different shades, right? So we want it to, we want words to be able to describe that. And we did find a word, actually 4 words that can help us describe the spectrum of people's food choices. And we gave the prize to that person.
Yeah, the reason I brought this up is that we have spoken with Oatly. They have recently introduced their products in China, the oat milk, Swedish oat milk company, and they face a similar situation that oat milk is a new product category in China. So they have to work with Chinese characters, which is a logogram. Sometimes it represents the pronunciation, sometimes it represents the significance. What they did is to place a grass component above the traditional milk character. So it's still pronounced as nai, which is how you pronounce milk in Chinese, but they added a component to create this totally out of the world, non-existent character, kind of to introduce their products, to explain what it is to the Chinese consumer base. So yes, that's some similar situations people have encountered navigating the Chinese market. And in addition to, so it sounds like
that's very important,
yeah, it's from what you said, it sounds like our food system, of course, has a lot of problems in terms of the environmental impact, humanitarian and animal welfare. The solution is not singular. We need the plant-based movement. We need the alternative proteins. We need regenerative agriculture, everything to come in together. It's not either or. Instead, we really need collaboration, not just across the industry, but even internationally, like what you do at Good Food Fund right now.
Right. It has to be a multi-issue approach. Yeah. I don't think we can solve the problem by just tackling one of the problems.
Yeah, amazing. So why don't we pass the crystal ball to you and let you allow you the magic ability to predict the future a little bit. Nothing is precise, but we want to hear your vision from your special perspective. What do you think is going to happen to the Chinese food system in 1 year and in 5 years?
Wow. Yeah, I wish I had the magic power to predict. I mean, just think about, this is a November, a year from, you know, a year ago, who could have predicted 2020, right? So it's like the world is different now. So I try my best. I mean, people say COVID will still be around for quite a while. Nobody knows how long. At least we're into the next year. I hope that will give us an opportunity to further reflecting on the problems with our food system and with our lifestyle in general. That has, we have witnessed that a little bit, but not enough. So we hope that with more reflections and with more people joining the reflection and also actions for change, we will see some major breakthroughs in the next few years. Already, like this year, you have seen Chinese government making some major commitment to a more sustainable future. For example, President Xi Jinping has pledged China going carbon neutral in 2060 at the UN Assembly this year, which is like surprised everybody, both at home and abroad. That's a big commitment. And there's different speculations why President Xi or Chinese government would make that pledge. But whatever is behind that, that pledge is there, the commitment is there, and there's a way to engage the Chinese government in realizing that, in meeting that goal. And also there's President Xi Jinping has commented on biodiversity, the necessity, the urgency of protecting biodiversity on Earth, also this year. And he also has been leading a campaign on reducing food waste. So all the things that we couldn't have imagined last year. Maybe it's partly related to COVID. Maybe it's not just about related to COVID. So we hope that next year, especially with the UN conference going on, with all the existing commitment China has made, and also with the US as a new president, there are many new possibilities. We want to remain hopeful and optimistic, although we know there's a lot of work to do, and there's not a lot, there's also a lot of chances that we might go the wrong way, but we want to remain hopeful, and that's what our energy for change and for action comes from. So yeah, let's hope for the best.
Wow,
I think it's really great. Yeah, what I love is the optimism too, because I feel like in such a challenging year with so many things working against us, it's not just this conversation. I think the whole industry is very optimistic. People continue to make great strides. People continue to collaborate, continue to build community, and continue to walk across the lines and work together. So if that can continue, we can continue to make improvements. We can continue to create change and change the future of food, not just for our community, but together and
exactly.
Around the world. So I'm super impressed with what you're doing, and I'm really excited to see how maybe we can collaborate, and NextGenChef as well as Essential Ingredients can support your initiatives, and what together, what kind of impact we can do together and have together. So I'm really pleased that, you know, you met Yvette at that conference and we're able to have this conversation and share these insights with our listeners so that they too can share your story and hear your story, because it's inspiring. And I think on a local level and on a global level, it gives us so much to look forward to, and it gives us inspiration, so that whether we're in China or Brazil or wherever, it's an opportunity to be able to build something and use what you're doing and recreate it for other places, so that they too can build a more sustainable and healthy food system, because that's really what we want to do around the world.
Right.
You're leading the charge in China.
Yeah.
You're leading a really great example.
No. I mean, we only have, as I said, we only had relative success. I wouldn't say we are successful, but because there's so many things you need to deal
I
with.
think it depends on how you
and so
define
many challenges
success.
you have to take. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
it depends
that.
on how you define success.
Yeah.
Because if you look, Yvette did this for us last year. We did our annual, our listeners can't see what I'm doing, but we did it was a year in review. And I'm sure everyone does this at the beginning of the year. You put down all these things that you want to do, right? And you may not reach all of them. But if you do your year in review and you look at them, I felt a great sense of accomplishment. And it depends how you look at it. Some people look at it, did you make zillions of dollars? Okay, and maybe that's how they qualify it. My qualifications are, did I have an impact? Did I help create a better food system? Did I have an impact on a food or a beverage business? Did I help somebody make a more informed choice and create more sustainable packaging, or choose a new way to build their food business that is more sustainable or healthy, or create greater access to healthy food? That to me is a sense of success. And so when I hear what you're doing and what you're building and those summits, you're touching so many people, and that is exponential.
Thank you. We do think it's important that, and thank you for inviting me to the podcast. We do think it's very important for the world to hear voices from China, because, we all we all tend to think in silos. We all tend to be, it's hard to think out of the box, for every one of us. So it takes efforts to get to know other countries, other cultures. So when people elsewhere think of China, they, it's easier to think of it as one thing. It's one thing that is, but we would like people to know that, China is not just one thing. There's so many different layers of efforts, so many different people in this country. And China has created a lot of problems. We all agree. China is a big country. Of course, we have 1/5 of the world population. Of course, it creates a lot of problems. As any, because every individual creates problems. So if you multiply that with 1.4 billion people, that of course is a big problem. But China is not just a problem. China can also be the solution. And there are people like us. We are not the only one. There are so many people in China, both in the government and also in the civil society and industry, and they are making efforts to find the solutions. So it's not like so that I think it's important for the world to hear these voices, that we are part of solutions. We are also actually helping to find the solutions. And this whole issue of environmental degradation is not created by one country, and it's not even initiated in countries like China. So we have to all be part of the solution.
So I just want to ask, I know that you have an upcoming movie. Is that correct? Can you tell us a little bit about this film that you have and where we can watch it? Both because I'm curious, but I'm sure our listeners are curious as well.
Yeah. So that's another thing we want people to hear, that, because people talk about China consumption of meat, that's huge. I as I said, we consume 1/3 of the world's meat, and that's not right, and that's not good. And so we have to reduce that. But there are also people in China who have become vegan or vegetarians who really care about animals, like myself. I didn't, I didn't grow up, I didn't grow up as, eating plant-based. But, when I, become aware of these issues about environment and animal sufferings, I can't stand that. I went plant-based. So this film that I've been planning for a few years now is called Zodiac 12. In China, we have 12 zodiac signs, like the year of the cow, the year of the pig, I
Year of the
believe
rat.
many people, yeah, the rat, people around the world all know. Yeah, this year is the year of the rat. That's right. So I was thinking of, a few years ago, I was thinking of ways to tell stories about how we relate to non-human animals in our world today. I thought of zodiac signs. That is like the best way to help people in China to connect to animals, because ever since we were born, we ever since we remember things, we knew that which year we were born in. Like myself, I was born in the year of the rabbit, and I love the rabbits. Ever since I grew up, rabbit was like my one of my it was probably my only toys, because I was born in mid 1970s. Back
Wait,
then
are
we
we
didn't have.
supposed to love the animal that we were born in the year of?
There's a kind of interesting dynamic, because
I think I'm the
nobody
year of the rat, and I just
yeah, your
embrace
parents
that.
yeah, your parents wouldn't tell you that you have to love the animal that you were born in, in the year that you were born in. But you somehow, you're that kind of environment is created for you. Like, for example, my toys were mostly rabbits. So I felt like very strange if I ate rabbits.
Well,
So I
because
never ate rabbit in my life.
but rabbits are so cute. I mean, how could you? It's a rabbit. They're really
Yeah,
cute.
yeah, that's
In
right.
America, bunny is a rabbit is
But
bunny,
it,
but in other cultures, rabbit is food. It is
but
culturally.
even in America or in the Western world where they think rabbits are cute, people are using fur, right?
Right, you have a good point. But like, I'm a
That
rat. I think I'm the year of the rat. There's nothing cute about a rat. I don't want to eat a rat. I don't want to touch a rat. I don't like rats.
that's
Okay,
right.
there's nothing
Very
about a
few
rat
people
I
eat
like.
rats. Yeah. Uh, yeah, but still, I mean, even people know, as we said, that in the West, even people, think some animals are cute, they're still consuming them, right? They're still like skinning their rabbits and use them as fur. So,
Okay, I'm sorry. I digressed. I got a little all consumed that I had to like the rat. Go on. Sorry.
and the snake, it's hard to like
Oh.
snake, for example. People were born in the year of the snake. So,
I have
yeah,
heard the
but
pig. Yeah, some people think it's cute. Some people see it as food. It's very smart. It's a very smart animal.
yeah, people who were born in the year of the dragon and in the year of the pig were considered as the luckiest.
Oh, really? Thank you.
I don't know why. Yeah, for sure. Because people, I don't know why. Because pork,
Pigs are
in China we
smart,
call,
but pigs are really
yeah,
smart.
in China we don't have a word for pork. We call it pig meat. So I mean, pork is like the meat for the Chinese, but
Mhm.
Yeah.
somehow they think people who were born in the year of the pig is the luckiest, because pig is lucky. I don't know why pig is lucky.
They get killed and eaten.
Prosperity.
You're eating a lot of them.
They are plump. they
They
they don't starve.
eat and they sleep. And then they're lucky. They don't have to do
And then they
anything.
get killed and
That's what
eaten.
people think.
But then they get
Yeah,
killed and eaten. I don't know. Okay, well,
yeah. They
we
get
That's
gotta
and
the
then
get
right.
back
they
to
get
your
killed and
film.
eaten. I don't know why they're lucky.
Let's get
Yeah.
back to your film, E. I got us a little
Okay.
off track
Okay.
here.
All right. Okay. So yeah. So my film is to look at the relation, how we relate to non-human animals in our modern world through the lenses of these 12 different animals, and they're very representative. Like, for example, there are farmed animals like pigs and cows,
Mhm,
and there are animals used for sports like horse,
mhm.
and there are animals used for laboratories like rats, uh, um, and 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 uh, and there are animals used for fur like rabbits. we use for fashion industry, like rabbits and goats. Yeah, so it's very representative. And there's dragon, which a lot of people ask, how do you do a dragon? Well, in the Chinese fable, the dragons dwell in the sea. So our dragons are not like your dragon. Our dragons are water dragons. Your dragons are fire dragons.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so in our fable, water dragons dwell in the sea. So for that, I will tell stories about the fishery, about animals in the sea, and used for food. Yeah, so it's called Zodiac 12, and we are lucky that we
And
have.
where can people watch this film?
I haven't finished it yet. I only started filming a little bit, and next year is a big year. Next year is the year of the cow.
Okay.
And cow is such an icon, right, for our traditional agriculture. If you think of a traditional agriculture, there's always a cow there, an ox, whatever call it, depending on their role in the agriculture system. So yeah, so iconic, and also it's also so iconic in terms of our dietary patterns of our modern world, because the Chinese traditionally didn't eat much beef. We didn't drink milk. But because of the modern industrial factory farming, the Chinese are consuming more and more dairy as well.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So much to
So
talk
it's a very
about.
good story to tell.
So much to,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we can go on for forever, and there's so much to discuss and so much to learn. But I do know that we have to wrap up. So before we wrap up, I just want to go over a few things. So what's the next activity that you have going on with the Global Food Fund, with the Good Food Fund, that our listeners can look forward to?
Well, we have the end of the year thing that is like
with the dinner. You have the dinner.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, the farewell dinner of 2020. That's like the
so
most.
We have to make sure to put a link up for that for our listeners in the show notes. So we're going to make sure to do that. So listeners, if anybody's interested in that, stay tuned. We're going to make sure to put a link up for that. What's the next one after that in the beginning of the new year?
And the next thing for that is the beginning of the Chinese New Year will be the early February.
Okay.
I will kick off my Year of the Cow project.
Okay.
So it's not just a documentary, but I also have an online participation for that.
Great.
It's very interesting. I don't want to say that now, but it's a very interesting project.
Great. Is there a link that you'll be able to provide us so that we can make sure that we give it to listeners, so that if they
not yet.
want to look
not
further?
Yet. I will.
Okay, you'll follow.
But people can follow that on our website. It's Zodiac 12.
Can you just say
net.
for our list? Okay, can you repeat that for our listeners, please?
Yeah, Zodiac12.net. 12 is not English word. It's numbers. So Zodiac, Zodiac, and then letter, and then number 1, number 2, and .net.
Okay, perfect. All righty. Okay, wonderful. So thank you so much for joining us, E. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day, your morning, Sunday morning, for joining us for this podcast. I want to thank our listeners for joining, Yvette for coordinating, and tell you that if you like this podcast, that you should please subscribe to our Essential Ingredients channel. You can do it at any of your favorite networks, whether it's Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, whatever you listen to. Share it with your friends. If you have a story or you've got a certain philosophy or position, or you're changing the future of food, we want to hear from you. So shoot me a note. So any other thoughts, ideas, we want to hear from you. Email me, connect with me directly. Yvette, thanks so much. E, thanks so much. And thanks again for tuning into Essential Ingredients.
Thank you both for having me. Keep up the great work.
Thank you as well. We're excited to continue to support you and collaborate. I want to thank my guests and my listeners for joining me today at Essential Ingredients. If you like this episode and you want to make sure not to miss any others, please subscribe. You can find us on all the large channels, including iTunes. And I hope that you'll make sure to follow us and share it with your friends. For more information, about essential ingredients, you can check out the website JustineReichman.com. You can follow myself on Instagram and Facebook at Justine Reichman. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about NextGenChef and the platform that powers this podcast, you can find us at NextGenChef.com, on Instagram, Facebook, and all the other social media outlets. I hope to hear from you and see you again soon.